Okay, so in the last lesson we created a save game slot. We saw it all working. This time we are going to create controls that can set the slot name and the username. The reason for that is because we want to be able to create a way to choose where we save the preset to. So you could have multiple presets. So if you want 10 different positions, you could create 10 different numbers for it. And we also want a way of being able to choose different fixtures to save into those slots. And for that, I'm sort of bastardizing the user index feature, which is supposed to be telling Unreal which multiplayer character you are, which player you are in a multiplayer game. But here we're using it to define the fixture. What will happen is that the information here is being saved into user 0 and slot 0. So we could choose to save fixture 1, fixture 2, fixture 3 as the users, and the slot is which slot we push it into. So we basically build ourselves a matrix where information is just being pushed into this table in the BP save game. So to do this, we need to build a couple of UI elements. We need something that creates numbers. So we'll use our spin box again, because we can type a number in there. There are better ways of doing this, but this is the easiest to explain. I'll do that. Now, remember, learning from what happened at the beginning of this tutorial where things got in the way, I am actually just going to move these up here out of the way of the other UI elements so they don't overlap. If you remember at the beginning of the tutorial, I couldn't work out why something wasn't working, and it was because I couldn't click on the intensity slider because it was underneath the word intensity. Okay, so these will be spinbox set user name, and this one will be set game slot. Now, for the name, I don't have to use a number. I could just type in a name. For that, we could use an editable text field. So we could create this, and when people type into it on the UI and hit enter, we could commit that value as the save game name, which would work just as well. The reason I'm not doing that is because we tend to think in numbers quite a lot. Everything has a preset number. We also name it on lighting desks, but numbers are universal in this. So it's nice and simple. You'll convert it to a string anyway. So the number 0 becomes the slot 0. What we also want to do is just to turn off the decimal places, because in the case of the index, user index, it needs to be an int. So for it to be an int, we can't have decimal places. So we do that by using this feature here, always use delta snap, and that will just make sure that what it sends is just a round fat 0 or 1, nothing else. It does look the same here still, but it will send round numbers. So we do that for both because we don't really want float information going to the into the save game name slot. You'll get a random number with lots of decimal places. We just want something really specific. You know, it's 12 or it's 10 or it's 15. We're going to set the range. The value starts at 0. Minimum range is 0. Maximum value we'll make 254. Doesn't have to be. I mean, I could just say 10, but 254 is a nice number in development. So that's 255 slots. So that means you got 255 individual presets with 255 different fixtures. There's no expectation for or limit there. You could have as many as you want, really. It's just good to start with something. So we are now in our graph area, and we're going to put in those two UI elements. So let's find them. They were our spin boxes with set game slot. So we want the on value changed, and we want our set. So is that one? Yeah, set game slot and set username on value changed. Let's click and drag those up over here. I'm going to put them like that. Oh, no, like that, because I want to send it into the middle. Now I'm going to save these as a, actually I don't have to save them as a variable. I can send them straight into the relative slots. We don't even need the event node to work. The execute pin doesn't need to be connected to anything. We just need the value. So the value of the set game slot goes to, you guessed it, game slot, like this. And the value of the user name, oh, I've called it username. Really, I should have called it user index. I'm confusing things by doing that. It's like this. I mean, I could have dragged out of the converter node, but anyway, it works. So we've now got some numbers that we can call. That's awesome. Let's see if that works. Let's compile and save. Let's DMX console. I'm going to turn on my light. And I'm going to hit play. So now if I turn on my intensity. There we go, it's just going for its startup. I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to save that as position 1. And I'm going to leave it on user 0. So I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to move it down. Oh, reflection off the screen. I'm going to save that as 2. And now I'm going to pan it over to the wall. I'm going to save that as 3. And let's just leave it there, because if it doesn't work, it's a waste of time. So I'm going to go back to 1 and hit load. It didn't work. Don't you love it when things don't work? Right. None of those have worked. So why didn't they work? Let's stop that. Let's go back to our UI. So let's see. So we're pushing in to the same user index. We've pushed into the slot. Let's have a look at this information here. It won't be showing us what's going on though. All that information is hidden when we're using it. So let's just try doing save. Does it update anything? Not that we can see. Okay, well I'm going to pause it there while I try to figure out what's going on, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, it's the most silly mistake in the world. I have named this one set game slots, but in my head that was a user index. So I was changing the value in my user index and not the save game slot. So basically everything kept saving into the same slot. So let's show you that again. Let's hit play. Actually, I'm just going to go back to the DMX console so we get it nice and big. There we go. It opens a new window if you open it when you're not in the main editor. So I'm going to load up my intensity. I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to save that as slot 1. This time in the game slots. This is where labeling things really helps. Should have named it. I'm going to move my pan over and I'm going to save that as slot 2. And then I'm going to stick it on the wall, move it down a bit, and I'm going to save that as slot 3. And now if we go back to 1, I'm going to hit load. That's the first position. 2, second position, and 3. Why did that work? Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Not doing anything. No, it's not. Maybe it's because I had it saved to... Yeah, there we go. That was why. I did 0, 1 and 2 as my 3 slots. So we go, lots of movement. So I've now created a way to move it relative to a preset. So let's just create a random one at 127. And I'm going to turn it off, but I'm going to preset it pointing up and move that over with the mirror so it's central there, and I'm going to save that. So now I'm going to load back 0, hit load, there it goes back on again. If I type in 127, load that, there we go, intensity's off and it's pointing back. So I've got my 254 slots, or 255 slots technically, of save game data. Now what about this field here? Okay, so this is for your fixture ID. Now to make this work, you need to connect the fixture. Let's just stop this. You need to connect this fixture ID here that we've created, username. That needs to be used to control which fixture you are selecting when you're working. So right over here in the DMX subsystem, when we say here get all fixtures, and we're selecting what says slider debug fixtures, we're trying to select a fixture here. Which one are we sending? And it goes over to our debug patch and it's going into the DMX to fixture. That fixture has been determined already by this value. Okay, so we want to use that same number to determine which fixture it is we're working on. So let's just go back to our designer mode. I believe this was our fixture, debug fixtures. So that is being used at the moment to create a variable which determines which fixture we're drawing out of the patch. And in the default case, it's fixture 0. If I hit play again, oh, done it again. Let's go back into DMX console. If I try changing this to something different, so it'll have a new value now, I now don't have access to this light because it's actually trying to communicate with a different light. It's trying to communicate with the Sharpie that we put in right at the beginning of the tutorial, which I don't actually have. If I put it back to 0, there we go. Now we have control. But this isn't really that good. I can't really see what it's doing. So let's change it to this slider here. So this box here is our set username, which is actually set fixture if you want to think about it in terms of the light. So go back to our graph, and I'm going to pull out from the value here. In fact, what I'm going to do is just make it neat. I'm going to pull out a variable. So I'm going to drag out and promote to variable. It's another way of doing it. I'm going to set the variable fixture number. Okay, so we now have a variable there which determines what fixture number we're trying to call. That is the same fixture that we're sending to the save game slot. Now, instead of using this debug here, I'm just going to delete that. We are going to get the variable for the fixture number that we just created and push that into there. So now, as you move that slider, so the spin box, and we select a number, it's going to save that number and push it into the fixture here. That's going to be the same number that we're using to control the save game slot. So I'm going to compile and save that. And let's just check everything's still working. I'm going to hit play. That's set to 0. Let's see if we still control our light. We do. Now I'm going to change my fixture to fixture 1. Can I turn my light off? I cannot, because I do not have this fixture on fixture 1. So how do we test if this is working? Well, if you had 2 lights, you could test it. I do have 4 of these, but 2 of them are broken mirrors and one's got a lamp that's gone, and you've probably seen it sitting in the corner. So I'm going to demonstrate this by changing the address of this light. First of all, you need to go to the DMX library and just add another mania in so that we can actually see how it works. So I'm going to drag this out of the way, and I'm going to put another mania in here at address 7. Oh no, I need to create a new fixture, sorry. Add a mania, mania 1, and stick it in here. It is being assigned universe 1 address 7. So in theory, if I change this address to 7, it will work. The thing we don't know is what fixture it thinks it's calling. Okay, because we did this at an earlier tutorial. We were trying to figure out with the print string what was being assigned to the fixture patch under which number. So let's go back into our console UI, and we'll find out if it's working by just changing the address and seeing which value it's connected to. It's either going to be something between 1 and 10 because we've only added about 5 fixtures. So let's load this again. We're on fixture 0, which is fixture 1, and we have intensity control of it. So now let's change it to address 7, which I'm going to do by adding in 6 more numbers onto the address, and now we don't have control of it. Let's change this to fixture 1, because that could be the next fixture in the profile. No. Now we know the Sharpie was fixture 4, so let's try fixture 5. Let's see if it's dumped it there. No. Okay, let's carry on where we were then. Let's go back to 2. No. Let's go to fixture 3. No. Let's go to fixture 4. Starting to see some of the weaknesses here in Unreal's system. 7. No. Starting to feel like this isn't working. Why isn't it working? Is there a different thing going on here? That is set. It's got a name, not that that matters. There's no way of knowing. Let's have a look at advanced details. There aren't any advanced details to look at. So why is it not sending? Let's do another print string and see if we can get the names of the fixtures out again. So we did that before from here. We did a get all fixtures in library, and it creates a get. What we need is a print string. Well, I've got to stop the game running first. So I'm going to drag a print string node out of here. It should just splice it in between that event that we already created. There we go. See, so it's left the old execute pins in, and we're going to put that get into the print string. And now when we move that slider, we should see if it's working. So let's go back to our DMX console and hit play. And we've got DMX entity fixture patch 0. So let's just move this on one at a time. Oh, is that why? I was using the wrong one, wasn't I? Nobody told me. Fixture patch 1. Fixture patch 2 is unit 4. So I was just using the wrong box again. In my head it's the other one. So it would have been 1. Okay, that's good. So let's leave that debug tool in there for the moment. In fact, let's turn it off because it's in the way. UI. We'll disconnect this, and I'll reconnect this up to this node, which should remove all of that. So there you go. We don't need those anymore. Compile and save that. Back to our DMX console. Hit play. Okay. Right, intensity. It's not working because we've got address to address 7. I'm now going to change this to fixture 1. There we go. So that is now on the second fixture because I've got it addressed differently. It's now a completely different light. What happens if I try loading one of the fixtures, one of the save game slots for the other fixture? It just moved a little bit. I don't know if you saw that. Let's try 0. There it goes. Let's try another one, number 2. There we go. So even though we saved all that data with the other light, because they're a different address, it is able to pull the same data out of the save game and apply it to this fixture. So we've now created a way to call the preset back from any fixture. Now, what about adding in colours and gobos and all the other parameters that we have in the light? Well, let's just have a quick look at the UI. We're going to do this in the next lesson, but I'll show you what's going to happen. Okay, we are collecting all of the information that's going to the fixture in this attribute map here. So what we're going to do next is copy the process we went through before, creating all those variables in the other blueprint. We are going to create a blueprint, a variable of this blueprint. Sorry, we're going to copy this variable into the other blueprint so that we can store this in the save game node, and then we can recall it back to this fixture. So we'll do that in the next lesson.